The latest conflict in the Middle East started with a shocking event. A joint United States and Israeli strike targeted and killed Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. This act set off a wave of anger and retaliation from Iran. In response, Iran launched attacks on United States and Israeli targets across the region. Almost overnight, what could have been a local incident became a regional war. Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz, a key route for oil, and struck back at military bases and infrastructure. Israel and the United States responded with airstrikes on Iran's military and nuclear sites. The violence spread quickly. Neighboring countries were soon drawn into the conflict. Many feared this could become a much bigger war. The death of Iran's leader made it even harder for diplomats to calm things down. Tensions remain high, and experts say the situation is more dangerous than it has been in years. The world is watching closely, worried about what might come next. The war has taken a heavy toll on ordinary people, disrupting daily life in ways that are hard to imagine for those far from the conflict. Every day, families wake up to uncertainty, unsure if their homes or loved ones will be safe by nightfall. Thousands of civilians have lost their lives as cities in Iran and Israel come under relentless attack. The grief is overwhelming, with entire communities mourning the loss of friends, neighbors, and family members. Homes, schools, and hospitals have been destroyed, leaving many with nowhere to go for shelter, education, or medical care. The destruction of vital infrastructure has left deep scars that will take years to heal. Families are fleeing for their lives, and many are now refugees in neighboring countries. Forced to leave everything behind, they face an uncertain future in overcrowded camps or unfamiliar cities. Access to basic needs like food, water, and medicine is getting harder every day. Long lines for aid are now a common sight, and shortages are pushing people to the brink of survival. Aid groups are struggling to reach those in need because the fighting won't stop. Humanitarian convoys are often delayed or turned back, leaving vulnerable populations without critical support. The destruction of power plants and water systems makes daily life a struggle for millions. Many are forced to rely on unsafe water sources and live without electricity, making even simple tasks a challenge. The impact is not just local. The world is watching as the crisis unfolds, with news of the conflict dominating headlines and sparking concern in every corner of the globe. Oil prices have soared around the world since the Strait of Hormuz was closed. This vital shipping route is a lifeline for the global energy supply, and its closure has sent shockwaves through international markets. This narrow waterway usually carries a fifth of the world's oil, making it one of the most important choke points for global trade. Now, with tankers stranded, the flow of energy has slowed to a trickle. Now, with tankers blocked, prices at gas stations from Europe to Asia have jumped. People everywhere are feeling the pinch, with long lines and rising costs becoming the new normal. For many families, the war means not only fear and loss, but also higher bills and less money to spend. Everyday expenses are rising, forcing tough choices about what to buy and what to go without. The economic pain is felt far beyond the battle zones. Businesses are closing, jobs are being lost, and uncertainty is spreading across continents, reminding us that in today's world, no one is truly untouched by conflict. Over the past several years, numerous countries and international organizations have made repeated attempts to stop the fighting and bring about a lasting peace in the region. Despite these efforts, none of the peace initiatives have succeeded in ending the violence or resolving the underlying disputes. The United States, along with European and regional partners, has pushed hard for negotiations, hoping to broker a deal that would halt the attacks and prevent further escalation. High-level meetings have taken place in countries like Oman and Pakistan, chosen for their neutral ground, but deep mistrust and suspicion remain on all sides, making progress extremely difficult. At one point, a short-lived ceasefire was brokered between Israel and Lebanon, raising hopes for a possible breakthrough. However, the truce lasted only 10 days before violence erupted again. The ceasefire quickly collapsed after renewed rocket attacks and retaliatory military strikes, shattering any sense of stability. Both Israel and Lebanon immediately accused each other of violating the agreement, fueling further animosity and making future ceasefires even harder to achieve. Many analysts and observers argue that the ceasefire was doomed from the start, since the deeper political and security issues driving the conflict were never truly addressed. Meanwhile, Iran and the United States have not held direct talks, avoiding face-to-face meetings even as tensions rise. Instead, indirect communication continues through intermediaries and back-channel messages, with other countries relaying proposals and responses. Each side has set tough preconditions for talks. Iran insists on security guarantees and demands an end to attacks on its territory and allies. Iranian leaders also call for the protection of civilians and an immediate halt to military operations that have displaced thousands. On the other hand, the United States and Israel demand that Iran stop supporting armed groups across the region, which they see as a major threat to stability, and insist that Iran halt its nuclear program, which they fear could lead to further conflict or even nuclear proliferation. With both sides refusing to compromise or soften their positions, the prospect of real, lasting peace seems more distant than ever. Diplomats from around the world warn that there is a deep and growing lack of trust between the parties, and that no one wants to be seen as backing down or making concessions, leaving the region trapped in a cycle of failed diplomacy and renewed violence. Iran holds a key card in this conflict, the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow passage connects the Persian Gulf to the world's oceans and is vital for shipping oil. By blocking the strait, Iran has caused a major shock to global energy supplies. Iran's leaders say they will keep the strait closed until their demands are met. They want the attacks on their country to stop, and they want guarantees that their government will not be targeted again. This move gives Iran more power at the negotiating table. At the same time, Iran continues to support groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon and militias in Iraq and Syria. This network of allies helps Iran influence the region and fight back against its enemies. Critics say this makes it much harder to isolate Iran or force it to make big changes. By using the Strait of Hormuz as leverage, Iran is reminding the world how much damage it can cause if pushed too far. The war has caused huge suffering for ordinary people. In Iran, thousands have been forced to leave their homes due to airstrikes and fighting. Many fled to cities far from the front lines, while others tried to escape to neighboring countries. Refugees face crowded camps, poor sanitation and shortages of food and water. The Iranian government responded to the crisis by shutting down the internet across the country for nearly 2 months. This left families unable to contact loved ones or share news with the outside world. It also meant no access to online banking or remote work, deepening the economic crisis. Some stories are especially heartbreaking. A group of Iranian women soccer players risked everything to escape the country, seeking asylum in Australia. Their journey shows how desperate people have become to find safety and hope. Aid organizations are calling for more help, but ongoing violence makes it hard to deliver supplies. For many, basic survival is now a daily struggle. The Strait of Hormuz blockade created a global oil crisis almost overnight. Oil tankers stuck in the Gulf could not reach markets in Europe or Asia. Prices shot up and some countries began rationing fuel. Energy experts say this is the worst disruption in decades. The United States responded by blocking Iranian ports, hoping to pressure Iran to reopen the strait. China and Russia have criticized these moves, calling for open shipping lanes and respect for international law. The European Union is trying to organize safe convoys for oil tankers, but the risks are high. Some countries like France and Germany are urging all sides to agree on at least a temporary ceasefire to get oil moving again. The United Nations has warned that the crisis could push millions into poverty if energy costs stay high. This crisis shows how closely the world's economies are tied to events in the Middle East. When war breaks out there, everyone feels the impact. The United States has now set forth a series of new and strict conditions that must be met before it will consider halting its ongoing attacks on Iran. These demands, announced at a high-level press conference, reflect growing tensions and the seriousness of the current standoff between the two nations. The first condition is that Iran must immediately cease all forms of support, financial, logistical, and military, for armed groups operating throughout the Middle East. This includes powerful organizations like Hezbollah in Lebanon, as well as various militias in Iraq and Syria. The U.S. claims that Iran's backing of these groups fuels instability and violence across the region, making peace impossible as long as this support continues. The second demand is that Iran must completely halt its nuclear program. This means stopping all uranium enrichment and related activities, and allowing international inspectors full and unrestricted access to all nuclear sites. The U.S. insists that only with total transparency can the world be sure Iran is not developing nuclear weapons. The third condition is economic. Iran must reopen the vital Strait of Hormuz to all commercial shipping. The US wants guarantees that oil and goods can pass safely through this crucial waterway, which is essential for the global economy and energy markets. According to US officials, only if Iran fully complies with all these demands will the United States even consider ending its military strikes and de-escalating the conflict. The US government argues that these steps are not just about American interests, but are necessary to ensure long-term peace and stability in the Middle East. They believe that without these changes, the cycle of violence will continue. American leaders also warn that Iran's actions threaten not only the region, but the world's economy and security. Disruptions in oil supply and rising tensions have already caused global markets to react with volatility, and there are fears of even greater instability if the situation escalates. On the other side, Iran insists that it will only come to the negotiating table if the United States first stops its attacks on Iranian territory. Iranian officials say that talks cannot happen under threat and violence. Furthermore, Iranian leaders demand that the United States formally recognize their government's right to exist and pledge not to interfere in Iran's internal affairs or support any efforts at regime change. With both sides insisting that the other must make the first move, the possibility of a diplomatic breakthrough remains distant. The deadlock continues, making a peaceful resolution difficult to achieve. Meanwhile, as leaders argue and tensions rise, it is ordinary people, families, children, and refugees who suffer the most, caught in the crossfire of a conflict that shows no sign of ending soon. Despite talks and pressure from other countries, the fighting has not stopped. Israeli forces remain active in southern Lebanon, while Iran keeps up its military presence and threats. Ceasefires are quickly broken, and new attacks can start at any time. Each side accuses the other of refusing to compromise. The risk of a wider war is growing, especially if another major leader is killed or a large attack hits civilians. The world watches nervously, hoping for a breakthrough but fearing more violence. Diplomats warn that without real progress, the region could face years of instability. The longer the conflict drags on, the harder it will be to rebuild trust and return to normal life. For now, peace remains fragile, and the future uncertain. Both sides must decide if they are willing to take risks for dialogue, or if war will continue. True peace in the Middle East will not come easily. Both the United States and Iran must be willing to compromise. Iran needs to limit its military actions and allow inspections of its nuclear sites. The United States and Israel must stop attacks on Iranian territory and offer real security guarantees. Other countries can help by pushing both sides toward talks, protecting shipping lanes, and sending humanitarian aid. The United Nations and European Union have important roles to play as neutral mediators. Most importantly, the needs of ordinary people should come first. Civilians need safety, jobs, and hope for the future. Only by putting their needs ahead of politics can the region escape the cycle of violence. A lasting peace will require patience, trust, and bold leadership. The world is waiting for all sides to show they are ready to choose peace over war. As leaders weigh their next moves, several paths lie ahead for the Middle East. In one scenario, renewed diplomacy prevails. Through patient negotiation, Iran, Israel, and the United States could reach agreements that reduce tensions and open borders to trade and cooperation. This path would likely see international observers verifying compliance and increased humanitarian aid reaching those in need. The region could start to heal, with communities rebuilding and hope gradually returning. But the risk of escalation remains. If talks break down, military confrontations could intensify, drawing in neighboring countries and placing millions of civilians at risk. Such a scenario would likely disrupt global energy supplies and create new waves of refugees, straining resources far beyond the region. There is also a middle path, one where neither side fully commits to peace, but open conflict is avoided. In this fragile balance, tensions simmer and progress is slow, but the door to dialogue remains open. Ultimately, the future will be shaped by the choices made today. Whether through diplomacy, confrontation, or uneasy stalemate, the world will be watching closely. The hopes of millions depend on leaders choosing dialogue over division and humanity over hostility. Only time will tell which path the region will take. As we reflect on the complex journey explored in this video, several key points emerge. The Middle East stands at a crossroads, with its future shaped by diplomacy, potential conflict, and the fragile hope of compromise. We've seen how each path carries profound consequences, not just for the region, but for the entire world. Understanding these dynamics is essential. The decisions made today will impact millions of lives, global stability, and the course of history itself. That's why staying informed matters. By seeking out reliable sources, engaging in thoughtful discussion, and remaining aware of ongoing developments, we all play a part, no matter where we live. If you found this video helpful, consider subscribing and turning on notifications to stay up to date with the latest analysis. Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's continue this important conversation together. Your awareness and engagement make a difference. Thank you for watching.